Well, here we are for another episode of Earth Warrior 7, where we talk about nuclear weapons. It's a beautiful day out here on Puget Sound. I'm at the home of daughter number 3, and she's in Hawaii, and daughter number 1 is visiting from Hawaii, and she's here with me. And daughter number 2 is enjoying her life down in Florida. They seem to like the warmth. But anyhow, the sun's shining here finally in Seattle. And I've been wondering how I should say this, but I have to admit that I'm a baby boomer. You know, that means I was born in the time of nuclear weapons, and they're still with us. And just across the sound from here, 30 miles direct, is where the Trident nuclear missile submarine base is, Kitsap Naval Base. It now includes both the Bangor ammunition or reload station that's been there forever on the Hood Canal, and then the Bremerton Navy Yards. I think now there's 2 carriers stationed there, and then the support groups are up at Everett. And if I want to go over there, I just go up just a few miles north of here to Edmonds and take the ferry over. It's a 36-mile ride, I think, but it's, as a crow flies, it's less than 30 miles over there. It's on my mind, and I'm going to talk about it because I think it needs to be talked about. I guess I'm just an old guy now, and my daughters roll their eyes here at the house that looks straight out across that. I'd be able you'd be able to see the mushroom cloud and everything. It's closer than in Helena, where our nuclear missile silos are probably 3 times the distance, at least 2 times that this one is from here. So I took my grandson. I just wanted him to think about it. I told him that if something happened, what he should try to do, to guard against the first flash. And then I put some 5-gallon water containers down under the house and showed him how to get down there, and so he could get down there, at least protect himself. This is while he was in high school. Well, daughters number 1 and number 3 just roll their eyes, and it's like, weird dad talking about this stuff. I guess daughters are entitled to call their dads weird. It can't be too far off, right? But the truth is, I'm very concerned about it. I'm not one of those survivalists that go out and dig a hole in the ground and build a shelter. I don't do that. But I do think that some of the things we learned when we were kids about covering ourselves from the direct blast was not a bad thing. And of course, I just got done looking through the military archives in Montana of the experience of the 163rd 163rd Infantry Regiment, which was in the longest serving division in the overseas in the Second World War. It was the 163rd Regimental Combat Team. And they started out helping defend Australia against the Japanese, and then all the way across New Guinea, all the way through the Philippines. And they ended up actually being part of the invasion force for Japan. And they landed just a few miles from Hiroshima. So there's pictures there of Hiroshima that were taken by people from Montana. Pictures you don't normally see. You usually see the same ones in the national press. And I've debated whether to show those, and I don't think I want to, because I guess that's called nuclear pornography. It's to scare people, but it's very sobering. It really is very sobering. There's just nothing left, really, just piles of ashes. So I'm not blaming myself for being concerned. It's part of my heritage as a baby boomer. I want to talk about that for a few minutes, but before I do, just to be very clear, we have 450 Minuteman missiles in our country scattered across Montana, North Dakota, and then down into Wyoming. That's a lot. But actually, sitting here looking across Puget Sound, where they run 8 boomers, they call them boomers, just like baby boomers, Ohio-class submarines out into the Pacific on patrol, with all their missiles, the multiple missiles, 4 to 5 warheads per missile. Even though there's a smaller number now with the new START limitations, there's still a great number of missiles in those warheads in those submarines. They're very dangerous. They're a very important part of our national defense. And then the ones that aren't out, they run about half of them at a time out. I think there's 8 there at Bangor. They have a whole bunch of storage lockers. You can just Google Bangor and look down and see the storage lockers. You can see the submarines pulled in and getting replenished and maintained and all that. It's no big, pretty easy to find. Yeah, but they got all those storage lockers too. And then they have a place out there at Kitsap that assembles the missiles. So you put together what's being assembled, what's being stored, what's in the submarines themselves, and then allow for 4 of them being out at any one time. And you're talking 1,700 nuclear missile or nuclear warheads just right across the water here. And that's more than 2 times what we have in our missile fields, just right here across from Seattle. And so when I see those multi-story buildings in Hiroshima and the pictures that the Montana GIs brought home, I think of these beautiful multi-story buildings here in Seattle, and they'd be nothing. It's a terrible thing to think about, but you need to realize that's something where we have to really take into consideration, because as important as the missiles in Montana are as a sponge to attract as many opposing force missiles in their initial attack, you could bet your bippy that their very first missiles are going to be headed toward this Kitsap Naval Base. So that's sobering, and I'm not going to stop talking about it because it concerns me. So what do we do as baby boomers? What a thing. I mean, let's look at who we've got so far. We had George Bush Jr., the young guy. Oh man. Then we got Bill Clinton, right? And I was thinking about it, we got Epstein. He was a baby boomer. We got Trump. He's a baby boomer, a month older than me. But then we got Jimmy Carter. He really tried hard to do the job, I think. I went down and saw his, where he grew up, the farm down in Plains, Georgia. It's really impressive. The guy, I mean, they had a bucket over a pipe for a shower head, and they'd set their radios up for the farmhands to come in and listen to the boxing, the fights. It was pretty cool. He was just a kid from down there in Georgia, and he ended up being a nuclear submarine officer, and he was destined for bigger things. But when he came home for his dad's funeral in that small town, he realized all the things his father had accomplished while he was out dinking around as a Navy officer. He decided to pull the plug on the Navy, and his wife, she didn't really like leaving the Navy, but they did, and they went back to Plains, and then you know what happened after that. Pretty remarkable guy. So, I mean, not all of us baby boomers are worthless, right? But I've certainly had people tell me that I'm responsible for all the problems in the world today. I don't think that's fair. I was telling my daughter, number 1, this morning about a conversation I had before he died with Senator Mike Mansfield. And I had called over from the Pentagon to just go visit with him. So I had never talked to him before. So I walked in there in my full dress uniform, and it was really nice. I was trying to get over the I'm going, this guy really looks like Mike Mansfield. He was a skinny old guy with black tennis shoes and a skinny tie and a scrawny neck like mine now. Only he was 99, I'm 79. He had 20 years on me. He looked great. So he poured me some coffee on a leather couch. You know, we sat next to each other and we talked. Asked him what he did, and he says, well, I sit here and all these people from Asia come in and ask me what my opinion is about things, and I give it to them. And he says, it's the best job I ever got paid for. I really liked the guy, and he was terse in many ways, but he felt that that NATO was becoming an offensive organization, and that bothered him after all the work he'd done with others to make it a defensive organization. I thought that was a month before 9/11, and so what's happened? So it's been 24 years. So a lot's happened with NATO since then, and we're kind of in a bind now on Ukraine. So he was pretty prescient about the whole thing. But anyhow, you know, I get why somebody wants to run for the U.S. Senate as an independent. I get that, I understand. The Democrats have been vilified like there's no tomorrow in Montana by constant messaging and, you know, infighting and all that kind of stuff. And so I ran as an independent one time. When I came back from the Pentagon the first time, I was really concerned that there was going to be a war in Iraq, because I had seen I was in the National Military Command Center, and I'd seen the Wolfowitz and Fife and you know, all that crew. They were planning another war. So I came home and I said, we can't go for this. Is bad. Well, they I had to run as an independent because the filing for running for office as a Democrat had been closed by the time I got home. So I ran basically to carry that message. I got plenty of interviews and that kind of stuff, but it didn't make a difference. We went to war anyhow, and that's a damn shame, truthfully. Now we're going to war again. We're talking about Greenland. We're talking about Venezuela. We're talking about Mexico. And it's kind of keeping our attention more than anything. But I think we're going to do that with at least a couple of them. Maybe Iran. So for me, it's not disillusioning, but it's very discouraging. And I get why people are upset with the Democrats, because we haven't really done a good job of making our case. So the one thing I remember, though, about Senator Mansfield, I asked him, we were interviewing old miners up in Butte at the time, and that's when that documentary on Butte, America was being made by Pam Roberts and Ed Dobb. They're friends of mine, and they did a good job. If you haven't seen it, it's a good story. But I told Senator Mansfield, I said, we've been interviewing all these old underground miners, and he'd been underground for 9 years before he became a U.S. Senator. So he knew the underground like the back of his hand. And I said, would you mind being interviewed? And he says, at every turn in my life when an important decision had to be made, Butte was in my corner. He said, I owe that to the people of Butte. So you come on over here and you ask me your questions and I'll give you the answers. I was just tickled. Well, I was at the Pentagon and I called Pam Roberts, my friend, really kind of like a sister, and I said to her, Pam, you got to go over there and interview him for your documentary. And she was so excited. But when she called over there, Goldman Sachs wouldn't let him do it. He was working for him, and I guess that was part of the deal. So he couldn't do it, which is unfortunate. It would have been a wonderful interview about the underground in Butte. But the important thing that I'm thinking about now is how he didn't talk about the Democrat Party so much as about Butte. And now we have Billings, which is the other end of the state, and Butte and Billings, they got this love-hate relationship going on. My wife's from Billings. She's a Democrat. Can't figure that. I can't, it's like, it's not a Butte Democrat. I'd be a Butte Democrat. And I'm going, how are we going to break this mold, this hole that's been locked into Montana, where Billings just thinks that it's got to vote Republican? I lived in Billings. I was a little kid there. I mean, I had girls in Billings try to beat me up, in snowball fights. I know about Billings. I lived in Miles City for 7 years. And I just, I remember the place well. And I don't understand why Billings votes Republican. I really don't. But what we got now is we got a person who's very credible, it looks like, running for the Senate against Daines as an independent. We got what, 2 or 3 people running as Democrats. Not me. I already tried to get Monica Tranel to run. I really think she'd be a really good candidate. She's a terrific woman. She was raised in Billings. She went to graduate from Billings Central. She went to school at St. Labray Mission. Her family was down there. She knows about the whole Native American cultural thing. She's a big part of that. And she's running the Western District. She'd be a really good, and she's a good candidate. She's an Olympic champion. And I found out about her not because I know her. I haven't met her yet. I found out about her because I was reading that book, The Crazies, about all the new money that's in Montana to spot up these ranches that are on their last legs, and then they have their different political views where they're coming from. It's very interesting. Good piece of work by a Wall Street Journal journalist. But that's how I realized that the work that Monica had done around the Public Service Commission, which I served on for 12 years, was first class. She's a first class individual. And I'm thinking, God, she'd be a great senator. So I've asked her. I called her once. I sent her an essay I wrote, wished her Merry Christmas. I haven't heard a thing back, really. So now this guy wants to run as an independent with John Tester's support, and I think it's a major mistake. I'm really saddened by it because we're not going to win it. We're not going to be able to defeat Daines that way. So I'm asking the people in Billings to look into Montana's history about, the guy Henry Plummer we all know about in the western part of the state. He was a sheriff. He had an official position, but he played dead. Apparently the people at the time thought he was lining his own pockets, and he had all the road agents, doing whatever he said. And so finally what happened is he got himself hung by the vigilantes. And it's still a matter of pride in the Helena area, Twin Bridges, Virginia City, Dillon. And all those vigilantes, they were Republicans. So I'm asking, there probably won't be a single Republican reading this or listening to this, but I'm asking the Republicans on behalf of a guy that used to live in Billings and Miles City. Though I'm from 5 generations of Butte people, don't hold it against me. Take a look at Daines and find a way to get rid of him. Please. Thank you.